Spectrum Voices Conversation, Harry's Facebook page, is an autistic radio production for the Autistic Association. We are sponsored by coldpack.co.uk. If you're a practitioner using cryotherapy in your practice, Coldpack produces a device that has all of your details, your website, your logo printed directly on the outside of the pack. And when you buy from them, we receive a generous contribution to keep the work that we do here as an authentically autistic charity. If you're a consumer wanting to get yourself a Coldpack, Coldpack gives everything that you pay on the Coldpack website to us.
We speak our words, you listen.
We speak our words, we listen.
We speak our words, we listen.
We speak our words, we listen.
This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 9th of November 2025. Welcome all. And this is where we discuss Facebook posts that have been shared on the Autistic Radio Facebook page. And the first post is from Diversity Doodles, which is a personal blog. Doodles that, with your help, aim to spread messages about neurodiversity that I'd like the world to understand. Thank you for helping making it happen. And they've shared the following. Is it your late diagnosis just questioning every part of your existence every minute of every day? While everyone expects you to carry on as a neurotypical that you aren't. I hope it isn't. I hope this isn't your reality. I hope this isn't happening to you. But if it is, I get it. Folks, what's your thoughts?
I would say if somebody is late diagnosed or has come to their realization of their autistic identity as an adult, then what the poster has put here is very familiar. It's something that happens to us all. I don't think it's anything that we can avoid, really. We need to have that introspective period to deal with this information, don't we?
I was socially isolated by the time when I got my diagnosis, and most of the people that I knew that knew me, when they heard, they weren't surprised and they just accepted it.
But what about what the post says there? Did you find that your late diagnosis meant that you were questioning every part of your existence every minute of every day?
I think some days it does. And I think for the first year, in a way it didn't, because I didn't really know a lot about this whole thing, late diagnosed adults. I was just surprised. It's only been since I understand it better that I do have days like this, but not every day.
I didn't question my existence every day because I knew why things were the way they were and I just accepted them. So I understand that my behaviour is of someone with a degree of autism, and I accept that. I'm not questioning why I do things because I'm not doing bad things.
In the text, Robbie says, my diagnosis was only confirmation of what I already knew. My father and I had a discussion after he had read an article on autism, and we both realised I was autistic.
So what do we think the poster is trying to say here?
What I read from it, and why I shared it, is not from my own experience, but from their experience. From their experience, they feel that there's been a lot of questioning of existence, of behaviour, and people around expecting you to stop doing all this, stop questioning, just get on with it, which looks like, from what I'm reading, is the lack of understanding out with. It's like a struggle within and people around you not understanding that you have to question. You want answers, or at least, if not answers, you want a little peace of mind. And that lack of understanding from others, because things are being diagnosed or identified so late on, it's not there. which makes it a very uncomfortable existence to them. But it's also identifying that others may be struggling the same.
So is that what is being questioned, the neurotypical reality that you were sharing with neurotypicals before you got your diagnosis?
For me, I don't think I'm questioning it. I think I realized I was living that way for so long. I'm going to be increasingly masking. And so I realized that there weren't very many people I could talk to this about. And there are no services where I am for late diagnosed adults. And so I needed a safe place to sometimes talk about it, like here. I think it might take me a while. And when I saw this post, I just thought, oh, thank you. Thank you for the doodle.
There is something in the post there that people do experience, and that's the expectations of the people who are around you who, for them, nothing has changed. They haven't been given a diagnosis or had a realization about their autism. So for them, they might expect you to continue to be the same person that you've always been, whilst you at the same time are looking into what your neurodiversity means for you. And that might mean some changes. So there's a disconnect there that people feel isolated with. And they need to find community and speak to other autistic people to experience and explain their autism amongst people who get it. Because they don't want to break up the network they have, but it doesn't feel as though the network is realizing quite what a big change this is for the autistic person when they do realize or they do get diagnosed.
The next post is from PANDA. They're a charity organisation which stands for Promoting Autism Neurodiversity Awareness. And what they've shared is the following. 2025, forced sterilisation of autists and others seen as unfit to be parents. And I'll read some of the introduction. Autistic in Denmark, Finland, Cyprus, Portugal, Bulgaria, Croatia, Czechia, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta and Slovakia. Forced sterilisation because autists are not fit to be parents. Sometimes I think the world is barbaric and that neurodivergents are the moral heart of our society, where many neurotypicals display staggering levels of cruelty. Today, I have to say, has left me feeling sick. I had no idea that the forced sterilisation of disabled women is still legal in 13 European Union nations, a scandal almost hidden in plain sight, and a direct violation of human rights and autonomy. In these countries, a guardian or legal representative can often consent to sterilisation on behalf of a person with disabilities, rather than the individual themselves. Despite the European Union's ratification of the Istanbul Convention, which commits member states to protect women from violence, forced sterilisation remains a sanctious practice and often justified as being for their own good, or to spare families and spouses from the imagined burden of disabled motherhood.
I think one of the first things is that people will see this and see this post as so extreme that they might question whether any of this is true. I was at a conference where we had the opportunity to also go to, as well as presenting, we had the opportunity to go to the presentations from other people. And there was a professional there who had spent his life as a consultant and a doctor and a leader of a charitable outreach that was going across Europe and looking at the situation. And he found mental hospitals in different countries where people were in conditions that we would not feel that we want to recognize in our history now, still continuing. There are systemic problems in a number of countries where autistic people and other people who don't fit the standard mold of brains are treated like this. It's true. It's out there.
Not surprised by this, I guess for two reasons. And the only reason I can even talk about it right now is to step back and look at it in an academic way, which is sort of what you did, Jules. You're talking about a conference of professionals. So in the beginning of my, post-secondary education, I did work with children. And that was more than 40 years ago, let's say. Even then, children were institutionalized. And this is sort of like in some places on Earth, some countries, maybe some countries on that list we're surprised about and others we're not surprised about. And the ones that we are surprised about are more like maybe the countries we're in have very, in recent history, hidden children who aren't, considered normal. The name of the hospital here, and probably in many places at one time in the not too distant past, was called the Home for Incurables. And then in the more recent time of my life, as a genealogist, you see things like this all the time. And they do happen in your own country to different groups of people, or they have in the recent past. There's been forced sterilization of different groups in Canada that we know about. And my first thought when I did not step back, when I had a personal and emotional reaction to it, was, this is part of a kind of genocide.
Continuing on with the post, it continues, autistic activist Sarah is fighting for a total ban in Portugal, rallying support across Europe and giving voice to women still living with the trauma of these violations. For Natasha in Belgium, sterilised by her mother's decision at 24, the aftermath has left deep wounds. For years, she was unable to speak about what happened, internalising the message that disabled women are unfit to be mothers. Sonny, a 34-year-old with learning difficulties in Berlin, stands as living proof that disabled parenting is not only possible, but thriving, when given the right supports. She raises her son, Matteo, in special accommodation designed for parents with disabilities, defying pervasive prejudice. Forced sterilisation is rooted in harmful, outdated notions about disability, gender, and capacity. It strips away agency, perpetuates the idea that disabled people are less deserving of family life. The ongoing legality across much of Europe exposes the gap between human rights rhetoric and reality for disabled women and autistic women. What it continues with is the following. Autistic men and boys have also been subjected to forced or coerced sterilisation in some European countries where the practice is legally permitted for people with disabilities. Although most available accounts, advocacy and research focus on women and girls due to the particular intersection of gender and reproductive rights, men and boys with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, including autists, may also be sterilised if they are judged incapable of making decisions about reproduction or are placed under guardianship. The legal frameworks that allow for non-consensual sterilisation in the 13 countries cited do not restrict the practice by gender, but the policy discussions and media attention typically concentrate on women due to issues surrounding motherhood and fertility. However, human rights organisations have called for an end to forced sterilisation for all people with disabilities, regardless of gender or diagnosis. Both autistic men and women are vulnerable where guardians or authorities are empowered to make medical and reproductive decisions without meaningful consultation or consent from the individual. The right to bodily autonomy and to family life is fundamental. No one else should have the power to decide who can be a parent. Sarah and other activists need solidarity, visibility, and accountability from governments and civil society. The Istanbul Convention must be enforced in practice, not just in principle, so forced sterilisation is finally consigned history.
I think I would agree with the intention, the final statement there. I can't really go into depth about this, it's just too complex. But forced sterilisation, definitely a no-no.
The next post is from When My Brain Is Messy, an author, an AUDHD children's picture book author and mum of 2. They've shared the following. I wonder with all these new AI actors and animal compilation videos, etc., if it will force people back to watching the real world. So many things on social media is questioned to be real or not, and that appeal gets lost in the moment we question the reality behind it. All of a sudden, I want to go to the theatre or see bands live. The more I scroll videos, the more I actually don't want to, because it's getting harder to differentiate between what's real and what's AI generated. And I hate not knowing what's real and what isn't anymore. Anyone else feeling this way? It's also made me want to explore the world, art, and photography more, just so I can produce and be in awe of things I know are real and right in front of me. I know most people feel like AI will take over art, actors, etc. But the appeal of art isn't in its perfection. For me, it's in the imperfections that make it both real and unbelievable at the same time. What's your thoughts?
This nothing new. There's a film called Videodrome, a David Cronenberg film, and there's a very good quote in that. Everything that is television is real. Everything that is real is less than television. Because even back in 1983, people didn't believe things unless they saw them on TV, and it's just the same now.
I may be overly optimistic, but I think it's the artists who are going to be very good at AI once the noise is out of the way, and perhaps the audience that can appreciate art already can see what's not real.
I think the poster here is focusing on a negative, quite rightly in her case, of the commercial side to all this. The scrolling on social media, which is based on dopamine hits. It's like the pick and mix section in Woolworths, like what sweeties can I have? And you don't really need sweeties, and you don't know what's in them or whether they're real or not. But for that moment, they're real. And so you get caught into this thing of scrolling through. I call it the attention economy. They're basically capturing your attention through hits. And that's not all of what's going on with the technology just now. But it definitely is a thing that is negative with regard to one's vision of the world, say, or your sense of reality. But a bit of perspective and a bit of depth sees that all through culture and history, reality has been represented in various ways through various technologies. Some we consider now to be real or more real than what's going on now with current technology. But they're similar processes. But I definitely agree that if you can get away from that scrolling capture and get back into a wee bit more somatically or body-based lifestyle, that's going to be good for you.
It feels to me that the poster has found a positive here. They're saying that AI slop that started to fill a feed that they would normally look to has become so unreliable that they've looked beyond it and are being themselves artists, living as artists, seeing things in reality and caring about live performance. So we could take this as a very positive reaction to people misusing AI and filling our brains with the spam that they're creating.
The next post is from Autism Adventures Abroad, which is a travel service. I'm an autistic travel writer and photographer who creates a variety of articles, blogs, and guides for the autistic community to travel with confidence. And it's Alex Chatikas that we've had a few podcasts with, and he shared a picture of himself in Ha Long Bay in Vietnam and saying, following quote, "The world is big and I want to have a good look at it before it gets dark. What's your thoughts?
My immediate reaction is, oh mate, the world's already dark.
I followed the Stones all over America and Canada and Europe, and I don't think I couldn't travel unless there was something like a concert there. I'd go to another country and then I'd be in San Francisco. I never visited Alcatraz. I went to the cinema all the time. So I didn't really do anything different, but I wouldn't like travelling now.
Isn't that classic autism though? We need a reason.
1988, I went to Berlin. We were supposed to be going to a couple of concerts. It was West Berlin then. And when I got there, it was cancelled. But I'm glad I went there for the 5 days because the wall was still up. So it was really something worth seeing. And then when I came home and there was a group of us in the pub, one of the guys said, have you been on holiday this year? And I said, yeah, I went to West Berlin. And he went, oh, that sounds great. And he'd just come home from Spain. And I said, if I wanted to spend a week on a beach, there's one 3 miles down the road.
I don't mind traveling. And it's possibly because with my own children who are neurodivergent in a different way than me, we like traveling with each other. I agree with what you're saying, PR. I don't think we're ever going for the usual. But then when they started getting to the end of high school, my daughter said to me, why don't you book something for yourself alone? That's when it got really good. I could go all over Turkey with these tiny little groups, kind of like this fellow's company. And I would just make sure that the other people in the small group of maybe 8 people were people that I could travel with. And it's been brilliant.
I think if people want to go to Alex's Facebook page and his website and his blog, he has tours where autistic people are understood and are taken in small groups to see different parts of the United States. So it's something to follow up on for Alex.
The next post is from Karuna Therapeutic Services. He's a therapist and is a autistic-led neuro-affirming counselling practice that empowers late identified autistic adults to heal, reconnect, and live authentically in a world that wasn't built for you, based in the UK. And what they talk about is advocacy without disclosure. In an ideal world, being open about our autistic identity would be met with validation, respect, and understanding. But for many of us, that isn't reality. Too often, disclosure brings scrutiny instead of support. That familiar moment where the light seems to turn on us, questions sharp and suspicious, like we're being cross-examined for daring to name our difference. For some autistic people, it simply isn't safe to disclose. Not to employers, not to potential employers. Sometimes not even to friends or family. And here's the truth. You don't owe anyone your story. Your neurology does not need to be public to be valid. So, what can advocacy look like without disclosure? It begins with identifying your needs. These are not special requests. They are access points to safety, regulation, participation. You might say, I focus best when I can have quiet time between meetings. Written communication helps me process things more clearly. I work best with clear expectations and timelines. I need time to think before responding. I'll get back to you. None of these require naming autism. They simply describe what supports your well-being. Advocacy doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and strategic. It's about creating conditions where you can thrive, without needing to justify why. You have the right to safety, inclusion, and authenticity, whether you choose to disclose or not.
This is excellent. When I first found out, I started disclosing to a lot of people, and then I put the brake on that. But then looking part of my life where I didn't know I had it, I used to do things like say, oh, I forgot I'm double booked. I'm supposed to be in another meeting right now. Or I would tell whole groups of people I managed that I, just in this really cliche way, don't make decisions until I sleep on them.
This came up before, and I said when my mother died and I had all the issues going on, my doctor said if anyone says anything to you and you're unsure, say no. Don't say yes because you think you have to say yes. If you're unsure, say no.
That is excellent. My doctor told me that once too, a long time ago, and I've never forgotten it.
What I like about this post is it feels it relates to me in many ways. Because I've had the habit of overcommitting for the sake of being pleasant. And I have also had the habit of oversharing because I felt there was a need for it. Although once it's been shared, I went, wait a minute, that did need to be shared. It's all about balance. It's all about looking after yourself, accommodating yourself, feeling safe, and feeling you don't need to justify your existence, basically. Because that's what many autistic people will feel. It's like you have to justify being different, even though everybody's different anyway. It's a strange one because there's this sort of myth that, that there's this sort of average person that you are compared to. And this average person is generally very good at everything and makes no mistakes, all that kind of nonsense. But when you challenge something or you feel that you need to challenge something, but you just feel vulnerable. So you try and kind of mask and, just try to go with the so-called crowd just to suit others around you rather than looking after yourself. And it's taken a long time, but I follow a lot from what this post is saying. If I'm feeling that I need help with something, I basically ask something to be written down or typed down so I can read it over and over like an instruction. Even if that instruction is actually very simple to the person giving it. And even to me, once it's been read over and over, it's actually a pretty simple thing. It's just about processing.
Is there a fear that if you disclose that you have a problem with something, rather than go full on and say, oh, I've been diagnosed with something. So you say, I have a problem with something, make accommodations. Is there a fear there that that isn't enough and you will be judged harshly for that as being, faulty or someone who isn't performing well? And especially in work environments and social environments?
I think you're right there, Ray. People do fear that if they hand over a diagnosis, then they are allowing other people to take control of that narrative. And very often, people will have very skewed ideas of what an autism diagnosis might mean for a perfectly capable employee. Even if they have experience of autism third hand through family, they might be thinking of a particular autistic child rather than an adult that's in front of them. For me, I say in most circumstances that disclosing your autism is inappropriate because in those environments, you're unlikely simply by disclosing your autism to get the necessary situation or environment for yourself. So the techniques that the poster puts down as alternative ways of describing why an employee should need something or require something because of the personality or the way they are makes much more sense to me. Handing people the word autism means that you're asking or giving them the opportunity to simply put their own prejudices upon that word.
The point I was making about these alternatives that you focus on there are that without and quite correctly you said an autism diagnosis might not even give you this kind of clout, but it may give you some backup legally, say, to air the fact that you have conditions that you need satisfied in your environment. Because if you just ask for these things without any reason, you may be judged negatively as not, obeying the rules, as it were.
This could be a little cynical, but one workaround if you worked in a large typical organization would be just to use think the word is a claptrap, but just look at what sorts of training the HR department is providing and just say, I am a whatever the flavor of the day is that divides personalities up, and say, as an INTJ, I need blah-de-de-blah.
Thanks everyone for discussion tonight, and a special thanks to people who have shared these posts that we've talked about. So this is Harry's Facebook for the 9th of November 2025, and here every Sunday, 5:55 PM.
Spectrum Voices Conversation is an Autistic Association production for AutisticRadio.com. If you have something to share with us, if you need a voice, you can make different kinds of programs with us. You can make a 10-minute short, or you can join us for a podcast to talk about a subject that is dear to your heart or something you think needs a wider audience. We have an open door policy for divergent views. We do not necessarily agree with everything that we share on our Facebook pages or the words expressed in our podcast. There are a lot of different divergent views which we are trying to allow get aired so that people can see things from different people's vantage. We hope that you will join that conversation. Contact us through any of our links, Facebook, by email, directly to us.